Hello and welcome to another video. Today I'm going to be building and painting the Tomb King's Skeleton Horsemen. The horses come in two halves with a base. I've assembled them off camera. It's a very easy job. You'll see here that I'm going to work my way through the sprues. The Tomb King's Horsemen are very easy to assemble. You have the options with the sprues to give them different heads, to give them different weapons, make them archers or make them cavalry with a spear. I choose to make them spearmen. As for shields, I want to see how many shields I get with the set before I decide whether or not any of my cavalry will have shields. I'd like to thank Games Workshop for not providing me with enough shields for everybody. So I'm going to have to pick and choose who gets a shield and who doesn't. I do like most of my skeleton infantry to have a shield and a spear. So that's going to limit the amount of free shields that I have for the cavalry, at least initially. I may have to buy some third-party shields from somewhere at some point. If any of you guys know where you can obtain suitable shields for Tomb Kings, please let me know. Assembling these guys is not hard. I chose to stick their heads on first, and now I'm sticking them onto their horses. I'll do their arms last. Holding them on the horses until they're tacky enough to stick by themselves can be a bit of a pain, but just persevere. The glue does seem to bond them together quite well. I've chosen also to attach one of their legs to the horse's rib cage. This is just to give it a third point to hold and make it a bit more secure for long-term use. Next up's going to be the weapons arms, and again I'm going to be using the spear arm. I'm going to glue most of them pointed straight up in the air or close to it, and that is just basically to make them easier to rank up. I don't have to worry about them stabbing each other in the back with their down pointed spears. Even though these are skeleton horses, they still do have a preferred way of ranking up. One will fit behind the other quite comfortably, but if you do vice versa, you'll find the head of one hits the tail of the other and stops them ranking closely together. Games Workshop, in their infinite wisdom, decided they were going to up the base sizes of an awful lot of the figures in the old world, but they didn't bother with the skeleton horsemen. I don't know what the Bretonian cavalry are like, but the skeleton horsemen could have done with deeper bases, in my opinion. That's all the weapon arms on now. I'm just doing the shield arms. Initially they're not going to be armed with shields, as I've said. That'll depend on how many shields I have spare after I've done all my infantry. I've chosen to run with the Halfords Red Primer, and then given it a heavy coating of white. It's not a zenithal, it would be heavier than a zenithal coating. It's covering most of the model from the top, leaving some of the red undercoat underneath. The first colour up is going to be Pallid Bone, and as you would expect, it's going to cover the vast majority of the miniatures, both skeleton and horse. You can, if you wish, dilute this paint down with a medium or even water, up to even a 50-50 mix if you wish, if you would prefer a paler bone colour. I quite like the bone colour that this produces, so I'm just going to leave it neat and paint it straight from the pot onto the models. So even though this is speed painting, it is still a bit time consuming. So make sure you've got your favourite tunes on in the background or your favourite podcast. Have some good lighting, a pair of reading glasses if you're an old geezer like me. Work away till you've finished. I like to leave the paint pooling in the crevices around the top of the rib cage, the rear end, around the eye sockets, the teeth. I think it provides a nice shading around the joints. I let it pull up in those areas and then let it dry, and it has a nice natural, leaves a nice natural depth, and you don't need to attack it for highlights, or you can if you wish. Use a lot of dry brushing afterwards, but you don't have to. Next colour up is going to be Slaughter Red, and I'm going to use that for my spear shafts. For no other reason than Games Workshop seem to like it, red spear shafts, and it actually does go very well with the bone colour and the other colour gold that the Tomb Kings seem to like. This colour from the Army Painter Speedpaints range is a very deep red. I think it's very nice. You could highlight this after it's dry if you wish. You could also shade it, but I don't think it needs it. At the end of the day, this is all about getting this army on the table as quickly as possible, although keeping it as presentable as possible as well. You can always come back at a later date and touch up any areas you feel that need a bit of work. Next colour up I'm going to use is Hoplite Gold, and that's because with hindsight I am going to stick to gold spear tips. It just looks better. You'll see for yourself at the end. I think it just matches the figures better than the iron colour that I was using. This Hoplite Gold colour goes over white really well. I have no idea if it'll go over a darker colour, but I do like the way it comes out after being painted straight over the top of white. And just like that, we're on to the bases. I'm going to try some of this AK Interactive Beach Sand. We'll see what it works out like. Just paint it straight onto the bases. I'm going to use a spatula. You could use an old paintbrush as well. It seems to come out of the pot in the consistency of ice cream. I have mixed it thoroughly. We'll see what it dries like. So the AK Interactive basing material seems to have dried to the consistency of ice cream, and I don't particularly like it. I'm sure a very good painter could wash and dry brush this and get it to look lovely. I have no chance of doing that, so what I'm going to do is add some texture to it by using some PVA glue and some fine sand over the top of the basin material, and then I'll apply a wash and dry brush and see how that turns out. As I have started this army using the AK Interactive products, I'll probably continue just to try and keep them all looking the same or as similar as possible. But if I was starting from scratch again, I might just stick with the sand and the wash and the dry brush method and skip the rather expensive AK Interactive stuff. Now, I'm sure it's good stuff, it's just I don't know how to use it. And now I'm switching from Army Painter Speedpaints to Citadel Contrast, and it's Aggaros Dunes, and I'm going to dilute this 50-50 with water and use it as a wash over the sand. Gives a nice colour without being too dark, in my opinion. Again, just working my way through all 8 models. This wash will have the added benefit of binding the sand to the AK Interactive material. And now for another Citadel colour, Screaming Skull, and I'm going to use that as my highlight. And I'm just going to dry brush that over the sandy base, and we'll see what it looks like at the end. I'm still undecided whether or not to make any of these horsemen horse archers. I think skeletons and archery is a bit of a misnomer. Let me know what you guys think in the comments section. Do you think any of these fellas should have bows, or just keep them all as spearmen? Tactically, I'm not sure whether it's worth it. Now to finish the bases off, I'm going to use some Army Painter Tufts. I think these things are great. They're a very simple way of adding some three dimensions to your base. I'm going to use two different types here. I'm using the Deadland, and I'm going to use the Highland Tufts. These are actually quite affordable. So if you've got a favourite local hobby shop, pick a couple of packs of these up would be my advice. You can buy a little electronic box and static grass and make your own tufts. I do that, and I do use some of my own tufts on these models as well. But the Army Painter stuff is affordable, and I have no problem recommending it. Now I'm just gonna edge the bases. I like to use a light brown colour, so I'm going to use a tan earth from Coat the Arms. You'll see up in the top left hand corner of the screen I've got the Vallejo flat earth paint displayed. Use any colour you like. I just happen to like a light brown colour for my bases. I think it goes well with the sand. I think black is it's just not for me, and green obviously is out of the question when you're doing a sand base. So it's light brown for me, but do whatever you like. At some point these guys will get shields, at least some of them will get shields, because it's always nice to have the option to arm them with shields and light armour. Give them a 5-up save, as well as their regeneration. But at the minute, thanks to GW, I don't know how many spare shields I'm gonna have. And that's it. I'm showing you 3 of the models here on my little DIY revolving table. Hopefully you like them as much as I do. I think the red undercoat really works really well with a heavy. If you didn't have spray, you could do a heavy dry brush of white over the top of the red, and then use the Pallid Bone, and you get a really nice skeletal effect, in my opinion. I would like to thank you for watching the video, especially if you've lasted this far, and if you wouldn't mind, I hate begging, but if you wouldn't mind, please hit the subscribe button and the like button. Thank you very much for your time. I look forward to making more videos.